Good evening, Los Angeles. This is Amanda Manier with the Veterans Voice on 790 KABC. I am a veteran advocate and an attorney at the Veterans Law Group, and the Veterans Voice is brought to you by Veterans Law Group. A little bit about us. We've been practicing VA disability compensation appeals for about 25 years. It's all we do, and all that means to those of you who are unfamiliar with that area is we help veterans navigate the process of getting their VA disability compensation through the VA. We work only in appeals, so that means that if you're initially filing a claim, we highly recommend that you work with the Veteran Service Officer in your area. But if you get a decision back from the VA and you don't like what it says, then it's our job to kind of help support you and work you through the process of the appeals, which can be a headache and a frustration and very lengthy process, but our job is to make it easy for you, as easy as we possibly can, and easy for the VA to grant your claim. So what I love to do on the Veterans Voice here on Tuesday nights is to do a couple of things. Sometimes we're highlighting and celebrating veterans and their families, doing interviews with veterans about telling their story. Sometimes we're talking about with organizations that are helping veterans in various ways, just to bring some awareness and also to make sure people out there know that there are organizations out there to help veterans and their families. In addition to that, we'll provide some kind of updated news, things that are going on that are affecting veterans and their families nationwide, and then answering questions when we're live to answer questions on how veterans can get support. If you're struggling with your disability benefits with the VA, have a question about it, a comment, or to just maybe to brainstorm a little bit, we would welcome your calls. We are live this evening, so if you have any questions that you would like to propose to us or talk in general, just things that are affecting veterans and their families, please contact us and give us a call at 800-222-5222. That's 800-222-5222. You're also welcome to submit questions via our Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, or even YouTube account. So if you just go on any of those and search Veterans Law Group, you will find us, and we're monitoring that throughout the show, and I'd be happy to answer those questions. Generally, we start off when I don't have a guest, and we're not having guests tonight, we're taking your calls. I would like to kind of present a couple of topics. It doesn't mean if you're out there and you're listening, then you have a question that it has to be related to this topic, but I am a teacher at heart. It's who I am, and so it's my desire to educate people on what veterans benefits look like, what kind of the hiccups are, and address your questions as well. One of the biggest things that I get is why is it so hard? I literally was yesterday in my chiropractor's office, who I have known since I was about 10 years old, and just a really good man, and he just was asking me, how did you get into this area of law, and why is it even necessary? It seems so ridiculous that a veteran would need to hire an attorney to get their disability benefits. And, I honestly will 100% agree with him. And I will often say that I wish I didn't have this job, because it should not be necessary for a veteran to hire an attorney to get their benefits. And, and I was very honest with him. In many cases, a veteran will go to the VA or go to a veteran service officer through the, DAV or VFW, file their claim, the VA reviews their claim and gives it back, and it's the right decision. And, the VA does get it right many times. I try to curb my cynicism a little bit about how I look at the VA, because people who are coming to me, they're at the point where they want to hire an attorney through the appeals process. That means they've gotten a decision. They don't like that decision. And in some cases, they've been battling it for years. And they come to a point where they're like, okay, I just want an attorney to take this off of my hands and fight the VA for me. So I know the people who are coming to me, and our phone rings off the hook, that those are the people who are not getting what they need. So I'm acknowledging that the VA does do what they should do in many cases, but in a lot of cases, It can be a long battle. We recently finished a case that the veteran had been fighting the battle with the VA for about 20 years and won that battle ultimately. And we came in about 7-8 years ago, picking up his case. And it was just, it's one of those things that, why did it take even us as an attorney the 7 to 8 years? And you're fighting for, one, to the VA to acknowledge that their disability is related to their service, and second, making sure they have the proper rating and the proper effective date. So that can become an ongoing battle. And in the appeals department at the VA, it can be very lengthy. But one of the important things is that we're always holding on to that effective date. And the important thing about the effective date is that is when they should have been paid what they ultimately are going to be paid. And so that's where it comes into back pay and all that kind of thing. So I just wanted to, acknowledge that there are cases out there that go through, and there are many veterans out there that are supportive of the VA and feel like that the VA has done them right. There are many, many veterans as well that struggle through this process and get really frustrated as the VA, who's an entire entity set up. I've said this to people at the VA when I was dealing with them. Your entire entity is created to help and support veterans. Why are you making this so difficult? So my job as a representative and as an attorney with veterans is to say to them, okay, let me take this off your shoulders. Let me keep track of deadlines. Let me get what evidence you need. Let me do what I need to do to help to make it easy for the VA to grant your claim. So if you're just tuning in, this is Amanda with the Veterans Voice, and we are taking calls from anybody who is out there who has a question about VA benefits, veteran, a family member, you don't have to be a veteran, or if you just are part of the general public and want to understand a little bit more of what's going on, feel free to reach out to us. You can call in at 800-222-5222. One of the things that I wanted to address that is happening in the news with the VA right now, or the military in general, is there was actually, it came as a result of a class action lawsuit. So I won't bore you with all of the legalese that comes into it, but ultimately the Navy has decided to reevaluate discharge upgrade applications of sailors or Marines who were diagnosed with PTSD, TBI, MST, which is military sexual trauma, or other mental health or behavioral conditions, if you were discharged as an dishonorable discharge based upon one of those conditions, or not really based on one of those, but a symptom of one of those things. Maybe you were discharged due to a DUI or drug use or alcohol use, things that people utilize to cope with PTSD, TBI, other mental health things, that the Navy is going to relook at those things. And the unique thing about this case, it's a little bit of a nuance. They started talking about this, 5 or 6 years ago, that the Navy was going to, maybe even more, the Navy was going to look into this. But this class action lawsuit actually comes back and says that they're going to relook at, in the past, what they said is, if you want to apply for a discharge upgrade, we'll look at and consider if you were discharged dishonorably due to symptoms to do with your PTSD or mental health. In this case, they are actually going back and saying, if you applied for a discharge upgrade from March 2nd of 2012 to the current, they are going to automatically, without you doing anything, go back and look at that discharge upgrade application and reevaluate it. A couple of things I'll tell you about. Well, one, the reason why discharge upgrades are so important is, one, obviously, if you served in the military and you get your DD-214 and you get out and you have a dishonorable discharge, it just doesn't feel right. And I know a lot of people pursue it just because they want it fixed and acknowledged. The other thing when it comes to my side of the world is, when it comes to VA disability benefits, if you have a dishonorable discharge, the VA has basically option to grant you benefits or not grant you benefits. Oftentimes with those types of things, they will grant you maybe healthcare benefits so you can get treatment for your condition, but not compensation for your condition. So you would have to go get a discharge upgrade to a general or honorable in order to get VA benefits, including compensation, education, those type of things. So it's something that kind of came up. And if you listened to the show at all a couple of weeks ago, I had my friend Aaron Drake on, who helps people with discharge upgrades. And this is something that is, he and I kind of laughed about it, that yes, the Navy is saying we're going to automatically review all of these cases. But if you're out there and you were somebody who served in the Navy or the Marines, tried to get a discharge upgrade back from 2012 to the current, I wouldn't wait for the Navy to do something. I would get a representative and have them be proactive about getting that discharge looked at. You could be part of thousands and thousands of cases that the Navy has looked at. And so if you're able to relook at it, you have a representative who's going to support you in that and be proactive in that, I would highly recommend that. So that's one of the kind of hot things that's happening right now within the Navy. And then if you get that discharge upgrade, then you're eligible for a whole bunch of other benefits, which is what we're going to talk about kind of moving forward. And again, if you are interested in talking with us about your VA disability claim, we're about to go to break, but if you'd like to reach out to us at 800-222-5222 or submit a question on our Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, just search veteranslawgroup.com, you'll find us. And we would love to talk to you. I would love to talk to you about your case and see how we can help you, any information that I can give you, in order to get you pointed in the right direction. You're listening to Amanda Manier with the Veterans Voice. I am the host here, hosted by Veterans Law Group, and we will be right back in a minute. Good evening. This is Amanda Manier with the Veterans Voice on 790 KABC. I am a veteran advocate and attorney at the Veterans Law Group. We have been practicing VA disability compensation claims for over 25 years, and what that means is I get the honor of representing veterans every single day. All of our clients are veterans or their family members, pursuing benefits that were promised to you when you signed the contract to join the military. And unfortunately, it's one of those things that there are a lot of people out there who, help veterans file claims. We deal with appeals process, which is you get a decision and you decide that you don't like what you got. And so a lot of the cases we work on are the hard cases, the tough cases, some of the MST cases, the VA doesn't believe, you don't have STRs, you don't have an injury in your STRs, you don't have a proper diagnosis, those type of things. And we help kind of navigate that process and provide experts and the proper evidence that is needed to grant your case. One of the great things that I love about doing on this show is to answer questions from veterans and their families who are struggling with this process and trying to navigate it. It's such a, oh my gosh, it used to be so much quote unquote easier, where a veteran could literally write on a napkin that he wanted to file a claim, and the VA then had to take on responsibility for helping them to develop that claim. And it's just over the years have gotten, you need to make sure you use the right form, and there's 3 different forms, and if you pick the wrong form, it turns into, they tell you picked the wrong form, but they don't tell you what form you need. It's just been, personally for me, working in this industry for a while, I've been working in this industry about 10 years, and our firm has 25 plus years working solely representing veterans before the VA. And I can tell you that as much changes as they try to make, the changes seem to cause more complications, to just be honest with you. But I know it's a frustrating process. I know that it's hard to navigate. And so any way in which I can be of help on this show is a bonus to me, and a service to an additional way in being in service to our veterans. So if you have a question and you would like to call in and ask about your claim or just brainstorm with me a little bit, I'm happy to take your calls at 800-222-5222. Feel free to give us a call if you're a veteran or a family member of a veteran, or just want to understand a little bit more about the process. So I understand we have a caller, Ben from Mission Viejo. Ben, are you with us?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you so much for joining us. Yes, I can hear you great. What can we help you with this evening?
Yes, ma'am. I heard you on the radio. Everything you were talking about just really resonated with me, and I had a question that no one has been able to just explain to me in greater detail. So I have 60% disability right now, and while I was in the service, it was discovered I had a problem with my heart. One of the chambers was enlarging, and I actually had heart surgery while I was in. And I got 0% from the heart surgery. And I don't know, that never really made sense to me as to why I would only get that rated at 0. Is there, I know that's kind of vague, but I'd love to hear your thoughts on that.
No, I absolutely understand. It's one of the things I get on a little bit of a soapbox about. So first of all, Ben, can you tell us what branch you served in and where you served? Just give us a little context.
I was in the Navy in San Diego.
Oh, nice. Well, I'm actually based out of San Diego, so I'd live on Coronado, actually. So we love our Navy veterans there in Coronado, that is for sure.
Yep.
So one of the interesting... Go ahead.
I'm sorry. Oh, no, I was stationed on Coronado. A couple commands down there.
Oh, nice. Well, good. Not a bad place to be stationed, you got to say.
Absolutely not.
Except the traffic.
Oh, yeah.
So one of the things that I'll say so everything when it comes to a rating based upon whatever disability you have is based on statute. So there's very little wiggle room. And it's not one of those things that's subjective of like, okay, this condition is affecting me 40% of my time, and so I should get a 40% rating. It really comes down to like reading really boring law that says if you have these symptoms, you're at this percentage. If you have these symptoms, you're at this percentage. When it comes to things like heart conditions, it also applies to things like cancer, leukemia, those types of things. They will actually, if you are not currently dealing with a condition that is affecting your day-to-day, so yes, you're diagnosed with a condition, but it's like in the cancer world, they call it in remission. So if you have a heart condition, but it's been quote unquote, and I'm going to say this with complete compassion, resolved, they will give you a lower rating at like a 0 or a 10%. And what the important thing is that you are service connected for that. So if you have troubles in the future, unfortunately, it comes down to you having to notify the VA that you're having conditions or you're having some symptoms or you have a condition that you need to go and get surgery for, or if you have a cancer thing, I'm now getting treatment for. They will raise your rating at that point. But they will then, if you go into remission again, reduce it back down again. So they're granting you a percentage at whatever symptoms that you're having at the time. So that's probably what's going on with does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes sense.
It's stupid, but it makes sense.
Well, what about surgeries then, like if they put like foreign objects in your body, like a pacemaker or stuff like that? Is that applicable as well?
Well, it won't raise your overall percentage long term. What it will do is during the time in which you have that surgery and are recovering for it, they should give you can apply for 100% for that period of time. Because if you go in to have a pacemaker and the doctor says you need to not work for 3 weeks or you need to, whatever surgery you have, if you're unable to go to work or you're unable to provide during that period of time, they will grant you 100% for that period of time. Then they'll, after that surgery, say you're able to go back to work, then they'll really reevaluate you at that point and determine whether you should still be a 0 or now you should be a 10% or a 20%. Heart conditions and cancers are things that drive me completely crazy because of that thing. You have to be suffering from it in order to get a higher rating.
Interesting.
So on those things, what's important of what I tell people is that you just need to make sure that as you're dealing with these conditions, that you make sure that you are communicating with the VA, because a lot of people, like you, maybe are working a job and you have private health care, and so your surgery is done through, Kaiser or Sharp or one of those in our area, and they don't necessarily think about even notifying the VA. And it's like during that time of which you are dealing with an issue related to that condition, the VA should be compensating you. In reality, the VA should also be treating you, but maybe you do or don't want to deal with them for that.
Yeah. Okay, that makes a lot more sense.
Yeah. So, but it's also important to get those things service connected. So from the beginning, because long term down the road, you may need the VA help, or your spouse may need the VA help with that. So,
yeah.
But yeah, unfortunately, it comes down to that's Congress. You got to bitch at Congress about that.
Yeah, good luck with that, huh?
Yeah.
But, well, thank you so much for answering my question. I appreciate that.
Absolutely, anytime, Ben. Thank you so much.
All right. You have a great night.
You too. All right, if you're just tuning in, this is Amanda with the Veteran's Voice, and I am a VA disability attorney and a veteran advocate, and we're taking questions tonight live at 800-222-5222. If you are a veteran or a family member of a veteran or somebody who has a question about their disability claim or just wants to talk about the process, feel free to give us a call. I am joined tonight by Susie with Culver City. We have a couple of minutes. Susie, can you hear me? Are you with us?
I'm here. Can you hear me, Amanda?
I can hear you great, Susie. What you got?
Oh, great. So this may be a little kind of a odd, premature question, but it just came up as I was driving. I pulled over, and I thought, oh, how appropriate. So I have a son-in-law who's in the Navy, and my daughter, his wife, they recently got married about a year ago, but she's part of the, what do they call that? I'm not a military family, so I'm learning all of this, but she's part of the extended family? She's an adult with autism.
Okay.
So she's part of that. But the last couple of weeks, he's been in the service for 8 years, and he is recently he's suicidal.
Okay.
So he's just in the process of he saw the therapist, who's now he's going to see, I guess, the psychologist, and there's one recommendation to have him removed or leave now because they deploy in January. Mm-hmm. But my question is, because I know it's a little overwhelming to begin with, and I know there's concerns with the discharge. I guess an honorable discharge in order for him to keep his benefits, and then because she's part of that program, does that, or do you know, is there a way to have her be covered if he gets discharged, or what the next steps are? I apologize for rambling, but I don't even know the questions, how to phrase it.
I think I can address a lot of your questions based upon that. The first being that the VA will determine, or the military will determine his discharge typically based upon they might what they call med board him out if he's dealing with some psychological issues. Generally those more and more, especially like I talked about, I don't know if you heard me at the beginning of the show, but the Navy is probably the most sensitive when it comes to acknowledging mental health issues related to service, and are not, they used to discharge dishonorably because of, alcohol use or drug use or whatever. They're now being a little more cognizant about PTSD symptoms and those kind of things. So as long as he has a general discharge or an other than honorable or honorable, those three things will make him available for VA disability benefits. The fact that he's already having symptoms in the military for his mental health should make it relatively easy for him to get service connection for that mental health. You usually have to have some symptoms in the military within 1 year to get that. The people who struggle with it are those who have symptoms, who don't talk about their symptoms. They have them, but they don't talk about them. So it sounds like I would say the advice to them, we're coming on a break, so I'm going to make it simple. Those things, when he does his exit interview, his exit examination, he needs to make sure that he includes the mental health issues on those. That will then make it easy for him to get his disability benefits, disability compensation. And I will say, as far as his wife that has special needs, that's going to come into play after the fact. So he has to get direct service connection for himself. Then that provides opens up benefits for spouses and for family members. So I would say the number one advice I would say to him is make sure when he does his exit examination that he includes, even if he's getting treatment already for some of mental health, but they ask him a series of questions and they check a bunch of boxes and sign them. He needs to make sure he checks the box that he's having mental health, whatever he wants to call it. Doesn't matter what he calls it, as long as there's an identification of whether it's PTSD, depression, anxiety, just something that shows that should then make it easy. And if there's, any issues that it's not, like that's a case when they have symptoms while they're in service and that's documented, those are the easiest cases. It's harder where we get involved when they don't document it or they don't, a lot of people, like, just to be honest, let's be real. It's a lot of, these military members, they're meant to, we tell them to suck it up. They're to go out there and do what they do.
That's exactly the whole issue, right? His thing is it makes him feel weak.
Yeah, yes, absolutely. And I'm going to come back. I'm going to come back after the break. If you want to listen in, I'm going to come back and talk a little bit about some of the people that I've worked with that we've kind of worked through that, because it's really about taking care of your family. It's not so much about having, the people who are struggling with admitting that they have a problem. Honestly, we can circle that back to, it's almost like family planning, like you would buy life insurance or anything else. It's really about taking care of your family. So we'll be right back. Yeah, thank you so much. We'll be right back. This is Amanda with the Veterans Voice on 790 KABC. Good evening. This is Amanda Manier with the Veterans Voice on 790 KABC. I am a veteran advocate and an attorney at the Veterans Law Group, and we are a law firm that has been practicing VA disability compensation for about 25 years, which basically what that means is we have been representing veterans before the VA who are pursuing their disability benefits for over 25 years. It's one of those things that is frustrating, and those of you who are listening to us that maybe not understand or questioning whether or not, why are attorneys involved in this and what is it that is needed. The VA process, it's almost like I try to equate it to understanding either workers' compensation or Social Security disability, that initially when you file a claim and your case is obvious, it should be granted, and it will almost always will be granted. The VA has their ineptitude, but they also, have some really great people that are working for them. When we get involved are those cases that are underrated or are more of the harder cases. And there's a number of different reasons. People ask me all the time, I was like, why is it that the VA can't get it right? And sometimes it's the VA being lazy, people being lazy, them not reading records correctly, them not getting the records they need. And sometimes it's about the records not being submitted to them or the right argument or being pointed out. So it's a bureaucratic process. It's frustrating. It's, can be frustrating to people who are navigating the process. And my job, as I always say, is to make it super easy for the VA to grant the claim, at the same time navigating or holding the hand and providing support for the veteran or their family member who is navigating this process. Many times this comes up where, why I'm a veteran, I don't really need this help. And that may be okay. Looking down the road, it sometimes is something that is ability to support your family. even after you're gone. So there's some ways in which doing that, of looking at it from a financial perspective or financial advising or estate planning perspective. So one of the things I love to do about this show at the Veterans Voice is to reach out and say, hey, tonight we're live. We are live this evening, and I would love to take questions from anybody out there who is listening who is a veteran who has questions about their claims, maybe about the claims process, even if you haven't filed yet and you kind of want to understand, what do I need to do? And coming from a professional or an expert who does this full time and lives in the deep end of the pool, as I call it. But in addition to that, if you're a family member, we work with so many family members who are the people who are the drivers of getting a veteran the help that they need. And in one case, in one perspective, it is compensation on a month-to-month basis, a dollar amount that you get put in your bank account to help with what you need. But in addition to that, it's also healthcare. So if you're somebody out there who's kind of navigating or wondering, should I apply for this? Should I work through this? Should I even approach it? I would love to take your call. Again, our number here is 800-222-5222. And in the meantime, one of the things that I wanted to talk about tonight is, we've talked, if you listen to the show at all, it's like the process. I'll kind of recap a little bit of, if you're a veteran if you get out of the military and you've got some sort of, and I hate to use the word disability, it's more like injury. They call it disability, but it's injury. It's like, I messed up my shoulder when I've, gotten to this particular incident. I have, mental health anxiety due to the stuff that I went through in service, or, I broke my foot and they repaired it, but it's still an ongoing thing. We signed a contract as civilians, and you as somebody who is going into the military, that contract you signed, I always look at it as, you signed this contract to say, hey, you're serving our country, you're protecting us, you're doing what you need to do, and whatever happens to you during that time, we're going to make sure that you're taken care of for the rest of your life for that. So it doesn't have to be a disability in the sense that, okay, my knee was injured, but it doesn't mean I can't step on my knee. So it doesn't have to be a complete disability. It's one of those things that it could be something that goes on in the future to become worse. So I always recommend with people who are getting out of the military is to go ahead and file your compensation package. You may get a 0% because it's, yes, we acknowledge you had this back injury, but it's not currently affecting you right now. So we're service connecting it, but it's at a 0%. And then maybe down the road, 20 years from now, it starts to bother you more and more, and you can file for an increase. So there's kind of laying the foundations with people who are getting out of the military. But one of the things I wanted to talk about, and if you're listening in and you have questions about this is typically a hot topic in some of our conversations in other platforms, is about comp and pen exams. So if you're going into getting a VA disability compensation package or getting compensated for that, you have to go through what we call a CNP exam, which is a comp and pen exam. And if you have one of those scheduled, or you wonder what that's going to happen if they get scheduled, call in. I would love to chat with you about it. Again, our number is 800-222-5222. That's 800-222-KABC. Or you can submit your question on Facebook, Twitter, or Instagram. I've had a number of those questions we kind of put out in our social media over the last couple of weeks about those CNP exams, and one of which people's experience with them, but also the anticipation of having them, because a lot of your case depends literally on that exam. You're getting a medical opinion at that point as to two things. One, if this injury is related to your service, and two, what is the severity of that injury, and that all equates down to your percentage that you get on that knee injury or back injury, that kind of thing. So I would love to kind of go through some of those. We have within our office some CMP guidelines that we tell people, hey, when you're going to an exam, there's a couple of things to kind of pay attention to, or even what to expect, especially under mental health things. It's a little intimidating to think you've got to walk into an office and talk to a doctor that you've never even seen or spoken before, and you're supposed to talk to them about whether or not you have suicidal thoughts, or whether or not you have ever had unprovoked anger, or take care of your health. So we're going to come back here in a minute, and I want to address some of the CNP exams. But again, if you have any questions related to anything related to VA, please contact us, 800-222-KABC. We will be right back after this break. This is Amanda with the Veteran's Voice. Good evening. This is Amanda Manier with the Veteran's Voice on 790 KABC. I'm a veteran advocate and an attorney at the Veterans Law Group, and all we do is help represent veterans before the VA to help them get the compensation that they are entitled to under contract and that they deserve for serving our country. One of the things that we were talking about before the break was when a veteran goes to the process of applying for benefits, one of the things that they absolutely have to go through is a comp and pen exam. It's the acronym, the VA loves acronyms, and military loves acronyms, CNP exam. And one of the things that I had listed on the things to talk about tonight is what to expect at your CNP exam. And I'm going to go into that a little bit, but we are live this evening, and if you would have questions, if you're a veteran has questions, family member has questions related to anything related to your VA disability claim, whether it be CNP exams or proper rating or any of those things, feel free to call us. I would love to take your questions, 800-222-5222. In the meantime, as we're taking callers, you can also submit a question on Facebook, Twitter, or Instagram. If you search our Veterans Law Group, you will find us there. There's also a lot of resources on YouTube under Veterans Law Group if you want to look at that. But one of the things I would love to talk about is of comp and pen exams. It doesn't seem like super exciting. It's not going to be, like invigorating or anything, but I just want to give a couple of reality checks, I guess. And I get questions all the time when it comes to our clients of like, I got called from the VA and I need to go to this exam. Do I have to go? And the reality is, yes, you have to go. So when you're filing for a claim, whether it's an initial claim or an appeal, when you're filing a claim, you are asking the VA for help. That may be a little subjective, a little bit of, yes, you're asking for help, but you're asking for help that you're entitled to. And a CNP exam is part of the process. You file a claim, they will do a little bit of check of your STRs to see, is this claim that you filed like a back injury? Did you have a back injury in service? Okay, yes, you did. So then we're going to send you to a comp and pen exam to determine, one, if your current back injury is related to service, and second, what the severity of it is. So comp and pen exams are incredibly important, and you must attend them. Do not cop out on them. They will give you a 0%. So before we go into any further on my soapbox about CMP exams, like I said, I'm here to serve you guys, and I understand that we have a couple of callers here. So let's start with Carmen in Azusa. Hi,
Hello?
Carmen. Hi.
Hi. I was calling. I do have a question. I am, my husband is a veteran, and he has MS.
Mm-hmm.
And he's, he was in the Air Force. He was on he was a jet engine mechanic, so he was around a lot of, and you don't know what causes MS,
Right,
of course,
right.
but it's just rare because he's, it took almost 5.5 years to diagnose him because he just didn't fit any of the profiles.
Sure.
And so they kept saying he was having strokes and treating it completely as if, to try and prevent strokes rather than treating or trying to at least slow down the progression of the MS. But I've been very curious because from what I understand, that he was in Guam, and he was on the flight line around chemicals, and then because he started at a very young age with the MS, he had certain symptoms, but we never narrowed it down to anything. It wasn't until it really attacked that it was a different. But look now, there were signs. So anyway, so I was just curious if somebody had said with the VA that if they've done research on a particular disease, that it might be something that is related. I don't know if that's true or not. We've never done anything to pursue it, but we've had several people tell us to.
Yeah, when it comes to MS in the military, you just need to show that you had symptoms. You don't need to have a diagnosis while you were in service. So many people don't understand. I have a dear sister who was diagnosed with MS. It took her about 3 years to get a diagnosis, but she had symptoms that whole time. And ultimately, when we look at cases of an MS diagnosis, is maybe the diagnosis was, if it's not within the year of service, then it becomes difficult. That's where we come in. So then we look at, okay, when were those symptoms? And we work with independent doctors who say, okay, talking with him, did you, like, all the different symptoms of things that are MS related? Were you feeling tingling? Were you feeling fogginess? Were you feeling this numbness in the left arm or right arm or whatever during the time of service or within 1 year later? And if that's the case, then those are early symptoms of MS, even if you didn't get actually a diagnosis until 5-6 years later. So,
but see, when the symptoms, when it really hit, like the whole stroke-like thing, symptoms, that was way after his service. That's why. But going, so it wouldn't be within even those 5 years, but it would even go back further. At the time, probably, I'm trying to think now, 20 years later, but he had symptoms way early on before, but we never related it to MS. Would they be able to narrow that down? Like,
well, and that comes down
to heat, and
that's going to come down to a medical opinion, because the VA can't make that opinion and we can't make that opinion, but we have doctors who can make those opinions, and we'd be more than happy to kind of look at if those symptoms were early on, related to that. Because we've done that with things like mental health, like schizophrenia and those kind of things. MS with a 20-year thing is going to be a little bit hard, but it doesn't mean that it can't be at least looked at and evaluated. Is if because like my family member who has MS, she started feeling the tingling in her fingertips about 5 years prior to her diagnosis. I don't know how, I'm not a medical expert, so I don't know how long that, trail can be, but it's certainly something, that can be looked into for sure.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So how do we go about doing that? What's our first step?
Is if you want us to look at your case, if you go to veteranslaw.com, we can certainly look into it. The other thing is that the VA is responsible for helping you through the process. So if you filed a claim with the VA, he is a veteran, and you say, I'm filing a claim for MS, and you file that, they will then take you through the comp and pen examination, get a medical opinion. That's kind of probably the best place to start, because we only get involved after the fact. Like if they decide, no, it's not involved, then they would take that. Then we would look at that case. So I would start with looking at your local county veteran service officer, going into them and filing a claim and see what they decide.
Okay. Oh, okay. Well, thank you.
All right.
I appreciate this very much.
Thanks.
All right.
Absolutely. Thanks so much, Carmen. I understand we have one more caller here, Steve in LA. Let's try to take you. Hi, Steve.
Hello. Hi. How are you?
We got 2 minutes. So what can I help you with?
Yeah. My question is real quick. A friend of mine recently got diagnosed 100% total and permanent for PTSD. He had been going to increased evaluations every 3 years.
Yep.
So my question is for him is, would the VA still require you to go to those mental health evaluations?
No.
Even though not, because you're okay.
Yeah, once the VA, okay, so for everybody who's listening, I'll and thank you so much, Steve, for calling in and for calling on behalf of your friend. And I'm going to sum this up before we go to a break, or before we close the show. What happens when the VA grants you compensation and they determine whether it's a permanent evaluation or a non-permanent? So that could be for any of your disabilities. So when they determine that he is 100% for his, sight condition or whatever it is, then they effectively communicate is they will not call him in for a re-examination to see if he got better. If they don't do that, then they're saying they'll grant maybe a 70% and they'll say, well, we're going to re-examine in 3 years because he might get better.
Right.
So,
right.
Yeah. And so if they're determined permanent and total, they shouldn't be re-examined. However, I will be honest with you, I've seen the VA try to re-examine people. It's one of the great things about having a representative like us. We respond and say, you're not allowed to do that. So thank you so much, Steve. You're a good friend. Thank you so much for joining us this evening. This is Amanda Manier with the Veterans Voice, sponsored by the Veterans Law Group. We will see you next Tuesday at 7 p.m.